morning. I certainly hope and pray that all is well. All right, so I just kind of want to talk about something real quick. That some of the faces I make is so funny. Look just like my dad. One time I went to the Mac counter and got my full face done. We got done, looked in the mirror, the lady said, "How you like it?" I was like, "I look like my father with makeup on." Okay, but anyway, it's funny. Me and my aunt, his sister, used to go out to breakfast. And I don't know what I was saying and talking about, and I was laughing. She said, "You look just like Daddy." Her and my dad's father, which was kind of surprising to me. I was like, "I do?" She was like, "Some faces you make, you look just like him." But anyway, I kind of, I'm 54 years old. I was born in 1972, I guess. Okay, someone knows. Someone knows the truth. But anyway, this is what they told me, right? So we're just going to go with that. And anyway, technology is like, this is something I want to talk about a while ago. I always had these things I don't talk about, but I don't talk about it right away. And then something happens, and it's like, okay, let me go ahead and talk about this thing. I like it, but in some ways, I think it's such a detriment in some ways to our social lives. Okay, they ain't saying nothing that we ain't heard. Okay. I'm going to talk about briefly and quickly relationships because I really don't want to talk about this. But I remember when people started using cell phones and whatnot, and I didn't have one for the longest. I just had my landline. I was cool with that. I really didn't want one. This was like my late 20s, and this guy was dating at the time. He wanted one, and he wanted to get a joint account. And I was like, I really don't want to do it, but I did, probably because his credit probably stunk. My credit back then, it was like A1. It was like she can get whatever she wants. That's what the guy said. He looked at, he was like, she can have whatever she wants. But anyway, flip phones. I'm in my late 20s at that point. And one thing, I think initially, no, I hardly ever used it at first. Just mainly to talk to him. Maybe my mom or something like that, a lady who raised me. I can't remember, but I know I hardly used it. I kept my landline phone, for the longest. And eventually me and him stopped talking, we were married. That was with Hebrews. We were married, whatever that ended. Okay, so life goes on. And I would meet guys here and there, and they would text me, which I remember one time this guy was texting me. This was like a friend, and it really bothered me because I was driving, and I was thinking to myself, why is he texting me? Why doesn't he just call me? This was just a friend situation, no relationship type thing or anything like that. I was like, why doesn't he just call? Why is he texting me? And I really kind of wanted to say, are you crazy? I'm driving. I can't be texting you while I'm driving, and you're texting me menial things. Okay. But hey, how you doing? That was the text. Hey, how you doing? Or whatever. And I think at one point I was like, well, I'm driving. I get back. And I just remember I was disturbed by it. Okay. Well, time goes on, and I would meet guys here and there, because they would show interest in me, and I'd be interested in them as well. They would text me. The conversation, they would text, and it bothered me. Like, why are you texting me? Why don't you just call? let's. I don't want to dot. Let's just call and have a conversation, But I never said anything. I was like, okay, whatever. I might have here and there. I don't know shit. I know usually back then I was kind of quiet. I didn't really say a lot about what I felt because I didn't want to, hurt nobody's feelings or nothing like that. So I was just like, whatever. But it just bothered me, like, why the fuck are you texting me? Why? You're my age, like, we're the same age. And the reason I'm saying that is because now I didn't get a cell phone. I think I was about 28 when I first got one, based off what I'm saying. And I just got it because the guy he wanted one, let's do a joint plan, whatever. I was like, okay, whatever, you know. And he didn't flake with the bill or nothing like that. He paid. That was the only reason I got it. My plan was not to really keep it for a long period of time. Let's just do out our contract or whatever. I don't know, it was like a year or two. I can't remember back then. And I wasn't going to have one anymore after that. But I did, I did. But I still had my landline phone. So when I would meet men, and I'm saying my age because, like, during those years where we were showing interest in one another, preteen, teen. Well, hell, for me, back then, times were so different. It was an age. You ain't gonna just be talking to no dude and you 13 years old. I wasn't allowed to. You understand what I'm saying? I was told that I couldn't have a boyfriend until I was 16. And then when 16 came around and I expressed interest, there was no particular person. I was told, no, you still can't have no boyfriend. I didn't tell you that. I was like, okay, I was pretty upset about that. And then, like, lady who raised me, she sent me to school with majority kids who were white. The majority of school was white, okay? And then I was told, you can't have no white boyfriend. You can't talk to no white dude, no white guy, no white boy, okay? And I was like, huh? I was like, I'll go to school with them. And it was something that I liked. Shit. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I didn't tell them I liked them. I was shy, I was too shy for all of that. Just my dreams and fantasies, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, I really didn't talk to guys. Like, I transferred to a Catholic school when I was in 11th grade, and it was all girl Catholic school, but we had a brother school, and I would go to some events that were for, where we basketball games or we had retreats, or whatever. There was one guy that I liked at my church when I was younger, but we didn't really, we talked on the phone here and there. We really weren't allowed to too much. His parents were very strict, but still, that's just how it was, yeah, we talking, he could come by for dinner, but that's about the end of that, and his parents wouldn't let him. I think they finally let him come by one time or whatever, but anyway, so I really didn't talk to guys or whatever. I was so shy to talk to them. My senior year, one of the girls that I hung out with in high school, she had me cracking the fuck up. She was so funny and so fun. But we would go to the basketball games, at our brother's school and whatnot, and through hanging out with her, because she, Catholic school was that type of thing that you start in kindergarten or preschool, whatever, you just stay there the whole, track, through the 12th grade. Well, I didn't. I went to Protestant Christian schools, and then I went to Catholic school my 11th grade year. So I didn't know. They kind of all knew each other at some point. Maybe they went to elementary school together, and then they came together in the 9th grade. And I was coming in 11th grade, so I didn't know anybody, And but hanging out with her like my senior year, not so much my junior year, but my senior year, she kind of introduced me, to some of the guys or whatever at her brother's school. And, a couple of them liked me here and there. And well, it's so cute. One time, my senior year, this guy called me I don't remember his name or anything. He was very nice. And we just sat on the phone in silence. We sat on the phone in silence. Little conversation, little couple words here, couple words there. I was so scared. I didn't know what to say. I had no clue what to say. And I called, I think I talked about this a little bit. I called my brother. He was in college, and I was telling him, I was like, I don't know what to say. And my brother's like, just get an index card and write down some questions that you can ask. And I said, well, what kind of questions? And he was like, ask me what your favorite color is. It was so innocent, pure, nothing like today. Okay. And, I did it, but I still felt funny or whatever. Well, I did my first year of college, in community college. I stayed home. I remember this one guy, I really liked him, that I met in college, at community college. And so we would talk here and there. He would come to my job. I used to work at Cinnabon, my first year of college, which was community college at home. I worked at Cinnabon and at one of the malls here. And he would come up there and see me sometime. We talked. And it's so funny. It was another guy I met. So he took me out and he picked me up from Cinnabon. I changed clothes and everything. And I was like 18. So I was like one of the few people there who could actually work the machine, make the dough, make the frosting. I had like frosting in my ear, like it flew in my ear. So he was like, yeah, Nikki, you got frosting in your ear. I was like, yeah. I was so embarrassed. But anyway, but I'm just saying conversations. We were having conversations face to face. And then I go away to college. And I had never had like a boyfriend or anything. I go away to college and I didn't talk to too many guys in college. I might have been guys I liked or whatever, little flirtation here and there, little conversations here and there, but nothing serious. And I remember someone asked me years later about if I had some sexual tryst with some guy, and I was like, no. I'm not saying I didn't have some of those. Okay, but that particular person, no. I said, I wonder how many people were saying that about me. But anyway, so the guys that I did talk to, one guy that was a boyfriend, he was not a student there. He was a photographer. And he was from D.C. and going to school in D.C. And another guy that I liked, loved him. Was not a student there. He was a student at, was he at UDC? No, he was at, was it UDC? I can't remember, one of the other colleges or whatever. Okay. I think, if I remember correctly, because it's been so long, the guy that was a photographer, he was like my first real boyfriend. Am I right about that? Yeah, he was my first real boyfriend. Okay. I think, that was my senior year. Unless somebody wants to tell me, oh, don't you remember such. But no, I don't remember anybody else as a boyfriend. Okay. But anyway, we had to have a conversation with one another. Like, he got on the phone and he called me, and we talked. Whether I was shy and scared or not, any guys back then, they got on the phone and they called and we talked. Okay, whether I was just not their boyfriend, but which we call situation, whatever, we still got on the phone and we talked. There was no texting. All we had was landline phones. Okay. So when I got a little bit older, I was meeting men, whatever. It bothered me, like, why are you texting me? Why don't you just call me? We actually did this. We actually looked at each other in the face and talked to each other, or we got on the phone, whether we were shy or scared or living in fear or whatever the case may be. Okay. Well, I got used to it over time, to the texting thing. Okay. Now, I can't say having in-depth conversations by text. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and her dude was having some real problems and issues. And she was telling me the conversation, but all of this was by text. And I was like, well, why are you texting? Why don't y'all just talk to each other face to face? And well, he's at work, whatever the case may be. And I was like, yeah, well, why don't you wait till you get, because they live together, why don't you wait till you get home and just talk to each other? Because I feel like so much is missed by text. But that was her situation. I just didn't understand it. I wasn't judging her or anything. I did later. I'm not gonna lie. I did later judge her, like, that's stupid. That's your man. You know what I'm saying? Y'all live together. Look at each other, have a conversation. You got children together. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, so now I'm finding that, and I don't know if I'm misunderstanding something. I don't think so. This energetic shit, that people do. Social media. So we have social media. I'm on here talking. I don't know who's watching me. Okay. But it's just like, we're opening ourselves up. And I'm doing it to, I'm opening my life to you. So you can watch. And, I'm not really into sharing a whole lot of my personal life. I think I might have shared before on social media. I had a Facebook and stuff like that. I used to have pictures of my daughter. I wouldn't put any pictures of her up now. My lady who raised me, her nephew was a police officer, and he had started working. He wasn't working on the street anymore. I don't know, something with his health or whatever, but he was working in a division where he was saying, it's about people who lure children, young people through social media, and he was like, I would never, the stories that I've heard and had to deal with, I would never have my child on social media. So I kind of, when he said that, I scaled back on putting her pictures up. And she's grown now, she's 21, but I still like, don't nobody need to know her birthday, don't nobody need to know nothing about her unless she wants to share it. I'm not putting shit up about my daughter. It's too many crazies out there, okay? Want to do black magic on you, want to do black magic on your child, all that crazy ass shit. No, okay? And let me see what her birth chart is. I fuck her life up. No, we've already had people personally in our lives try to do that to us. So, no. Because the shit I be talking about on here, you was doing this shit to my daughter too. Okay? Anyway, but this telepathic shit and this energetic shit, what is that? Okay, so I remember, I talked about this years ago. There was this guy this older man that I was talking to, not in a relationship, we were just friends, okay? And there was a night I woke up and I sensed someone at the foot of my bed, and I was like, get the fuck out, get out, the fuck is this, get out. So I was telling him about it. We had these spiritual talks, and I was telling him about it. He was like, well, why would you tell him to leave? And right then I was like, okay, so it was you, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? It was you. And I didn't say that to him, and I said, well, because I didn't tell him, whoever he was, that he could come in my house. Just come all up in my house, invade my shit, my privacy. So him and this motherfucker Mike Brown that I talked about, okay, who got involved in this shit too, were telling me how these men do these things. Men, at the time they were talking about white men, it ain't just white men, come on now, who do this to women, and they astral project, and they, do sexual things, blah, 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 for their power. I remember years ago, I read this woman, she had a blog or something. I used to read her stuff. It was really good. And she was sharing this kind of information and stories she had heard, and men who were doing these things, and they would they would tell her or tell the woman they was doing it to, and They would tell her whatever she was okay talking about it, which I tried to share with this bleeding seeing this one of her silly ass cousins, and they think, oh, Nikki's dark. That's not dark, bitch. That's informing you, you dummy. Okay, but now y'all do it. Okay, but anyway, I just don't understand that. Now, for those people that's doing it for diabolical reasons and they trying to siphon the woman's energy for power and money and status and blah blah blah. Okay, I see why you're doing it, but well, I'm gathering. Well, well, and women who are experiencing this, if you don't have a problem, I'm not judging you if you like that or whatever. Okay, I don't like that. Okay, but there are some people they don't mind it, they enjoy it. But it's this thing of what's this thing of having some kind of quote unquote relationship with a body or a human being and they're not physically there. Don't send me no songs telepathically. No, keep your songs, keep your shit. You're not going to have a conversation with me. I got an email. That's all you're gonna get away from me. As far as how to contact me, these motherfuckers have Googled me, got my phone number and all type of shit. Okay, but if you're not going to have a conversation with me, I'm not gonna live my life like that. Because I don't understand that. You know, I don't want to understand it. It's not really a relationship. You just keep throwing your energy. Everybody's gone now. You keep throwing your energy at someone. Maybe you're interested in them, like, why don't you say anything? What's wrong with human interaction? What's wrong with that? Now, I talked about this one time. I was texting someone, probably from the love spell. This is when I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Okay. And a couple times they said something, but it was caught up in, well, I'm supposed to be doing you in, so I'm gonna destroy you. But I'm putting the love spell on you at the same time. Okay. But I thank God there was like divine intervention to stop that shit. If that person ain't gonna talk to you, then stop. Okay. And I'm somewhat of a traditionalist to a degree. I used to if I liked someone and I want to talk to them or whatever, I would let them know, hey, I'll go introduce myself, and talk. I really don't do that anymore. I'm not asking you for your phone number. I'm not doing that. Not because this is not a bashing men thing. But this is not this way is the better way. No, this is just me talking about me. Okay? I prefer not to do that any longer. Okay? So I won't. I don't care. I don't care nothing about what people say. You're gonna die lonely. You done hit the wall. I don't care nothing about that shit. That entertainment talk to keep people bound mentally, because that's all it is. Okay. Some people believe that. I remember I met this guy walking, and he started talking to me, and we talked, and he asked me for my phone number, and I gave it to him. I actually had met him before, And then he goes on with the statistics that I don't want to live in that box. I'm not. I don't care what this one say on social media or that one say on social media. I don't. If you gonna be real and down to earth, then we can have a conversation. But if you gonna come at me with this one on social media say this and this one on the social media, they got the huge platform that they're getting paid to do that shit because they apparently don't believe it. You know, from when they died, we saw they don't believe nothing what the fuck they was talking about. They was just they getting paid. When they first started their platform, that's not what they were saying. Okay, and I don't care one way or the other. If we're gonna be real and down to earth and have a real conversation and really get to know one another, then that's a beautiful thing. Okay, but I'm not gonna live in no boxes of what this say and that say. And I just looked at him like, oh, he just coming across as very plastic to me. I didn't say that, but I'm like, okay, whatever. If you want to talk, we can talk. If you don't, that's okay. We'll move on. I'm not gonna waste your time. You know what I'm saying? Please don't waste mine. But I'm open here. But that energetic stuff that people do, throwing their energy, you will do that for years. You do that for the next 20, 30 years. Because it don't, it's just not real to me. Like, I don't want to say anything in an offensive way, but it's just kind of, in one respect, it can be looked at as cowardly, but it could also be looked at as, okay, what are you trying to siphon here off from me, my energy? Is that what you're doing? Okay, you can stop, because I'm not going to give in to throwing your energy this way. I'm just, why should I give you my energy and get caught up in an idea, a fantasy that is never going to turn into a reality? Because you're not, it's, we've been gone from the texting, no, to actually talking to each other face to face, having to face the fear, our fears, our shyness. We had to face that. Okay, to texting. Okay, from that to talking on the phone, still facing the fears, to texting, to now I'll just throw my energy your way. I'll just telepathically send you these songs. I'll just be thinking about you, or whatever people do to throw their energy at somebody, to let them know that they're interested, but not really carrying it, but not really taking it to a place of actual relationship. And I'm not saying a committed romantic relationship. It may not turn into that. It could just end up being a friendship, or whatever the case may be. But well, what is that? What is that all about? I think I want to say women should be careful with that. I don't know if women do it to men. I don't know. I hear women talking about it. There was a woman I saw on YouTube, her story on YouTube. This woman, she was a doctor, and they were saying she started making these very strange videos, talking about I love you, and I done made dinner, and here go the flowers, and blah blah blah. But everybody was like, hey, from what I can remember the story, people knew it was like, there was nobody there. We didn't know who she was talking about, but she was making these videos as though she was in this full-blown relationship with someone. And come to find out, it was one of them gospel singers. I think I know his name, but I don't want to say his name if that's not the person. And then I think the woman actually did go to see him, and the man was like, I don't know you, get this woman up off my property, this, that, and other. Well, the next thing, I think the woman, she did pass. Her life ended. And I don't know if she did it to herself or if it was done to her. I can't remember. Okay. But she was caught up in this. Now, I don't know if the man was actually doing it or not. If he was actually, throwing his energy at her or not, astral projecting to her or not, and all of that kind of thing. I don't know, if he was, okay, or if she was just somewhere else in her mind. You know what I'm saying? But I did have a client one time, super long time ago, when I first went public with my readings, and she had the same situation about this well-known figure who she believed she was in a relationship with. Did he ever talk? No. I mean, like physically, tangibly, when we could see, no. But the astral projection, the throwing the energy, the telepathic communication, and then apparently, from her perspective, this man would do things in the physical to show that he was actually, that the conversation she said they had, that he was actually doing this, some kind of confirmation. And she was really thought she was going to marry this man. Well, man didn't marry her. Of course, he never presented himself to her in the physical. He got married, all right, okay, but not to her. Now, this is not a commentary on this young woman at all, okay? And I'm like, so this is something that, I don't know if it's some underground network or some shit like that, that they do, okay, or that men do. I'm not saying all men, by any stretch of the imagination, okay? But I just, the reason I say I would be cautious of that is because if those experiences, those women, those two women that I'm aware of have been real. Oh, and I had another conversation with another woman telling me the same thing. Now, I have experienced my own self, a person, a well-known figure, throwing their energy at me. I spoke on it, I think the year before last, or maybe, was it maybe 2023? I was like, don't come back around. And that person stopped. I'm not interested in that kind of crazy shit. You're not supposed to think that you want to present yourself to me in physically for real. No, you're not. You're not. Because if like that one woman who her life, it was taken in some way, shape, or form, whether she took it or it was taken, I can't remember exactly. I'd have to find. I don't remember even how the story just showed up on my feed one day. This was a long time ago. A woman was believing that this man was going to present himself to her in the physical, and he didn't. I ain't saying nothing that people don't know. Please. I ain't saying nothing that probably have not been talked about on some videos here on YouTube and books and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, the woman, when I first was hearing about it was years ago. The woman was writing a blog. I read about it on her blog. Okay. It was probably about 15 years ago. 15, 16 years ago when I was reading about that on the blog. But I'm not open to that. Because I feel like I don't feel like I know I'm worthy enough. But if you are truly interested, you will present yourself to me in the physical, and you will speak to me and have a conversation with me, and we can go from there. but not that throwing your energy over here. Hey, I'm here. No, you're not here. And while you may, sometimes it depends on the person. They may have a wife or they may have, a girlfriend or some shit like that, but then they want to come over, traipse over here or wherever and think that you're going to have some kind of fake relationship through the astral projection and the telepathic communication and all of that type of thing. I'm not open to that. I mean, it's probably been going on forever. Ain't nothing new under the sun. That makes it real easy for people to get what they want out of something, and then it's not real. So, like, what are you looking? What? Like I said, what are you looking for? How insulting! It's very insulting. But even besides that, I just think it's just wrong. What's wrong with actually talking to someone? What's wrong with that? Yeah, I mean, if like I said, if your game is, that you just there to siphon off somebody, so you can continue, to have some kind of power or status or something like that. I guess that's what you're up to. I'm thinking that's all it's about. So, that's just not a game I'm gonna play with, because I know that if you're doing it, like I said, you're trying to siphon so you can keep your power, so you're gonna siphon the woman's energy and all that kind of, keep your power and keep your money and all that kind of thing, like get some power and get some money, status and all that type of thing. Okay, but still no, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, you know what I'm saying? If you're doing it out of fear, or whatever, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna participate in that. I'm worthy. I am a human being, and I'm worthy of true relationship. So, I don't understand this. Well, I don't know. I sometimes I hesitate with things that I want to say. No, it may not seem like it, but I do, because I try to be cognizant of another person's perspective. I try to be cognizant of another person's feelings and all of that kind of stuff. But if anybody, if you thinking that's what you're gonna do, don't. Just slow your rolls. I can't stop nobody from watching me. I put myself on here. I can't stop that. But for the boys club or whatever, yeah, I would just leave me alone. If that's what it is, leave me alone. If not, and there's an interest is just communicate effectively in the appropriate way. All right. I think that's enough. I think that's good enough. That's well understood. If I have to add on to it, I will. But don't invade my world, my privacy, and my life if you're not serious.